Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Virginia Rental Fleet channel. This is Wednesday, October 26th, 2022. And as I promised in previous videos, I wanted to do sort of a detailed recap of the phone consultation that I did with a member of the Your Advocate Alliance website, YAA, which I must say has become essentially a crutch at this point for me as I launch this business and start moving down this path. That and CEO Matty J's car rental game course, I wouldn't be at this stage. I wouldn't be this serious and confident about launching this business without those two resources. So the gentleman that I spoke to on Monday, the 17th of October, Phil Nader, and I spent an hour together. I had some populated or pre-thought out questions that I typed up and brought into that phone consultation on the 17th. And I'm just going to kind of go through those with you guys. In fact, I'm really looking at some very raw notes here. I don't know how well you guys can see that. So this is nothing fancy. This is just me kind of using my handwritten notes as recall to talk through this with you guys. So let me do that. And I apologize in advance if there's any jaggedness to this, if it kind of comes off a little bit non-linear. But it's the best reconstruction of it that I can do, and have a method to my madness here that I can follow fairly well going forward. So hopefully it translates for you guys. So let's just come over to the YA side here in the background. I'm going to talk about some of this other stuff later in a different video, actually, this chat over here, so you can kind of ignore that. But let me actually, we're going to come back over here. And we'll just leave Gmail up here as a backdrop. Actually, you know what? Let's just bring the YA site up for you guys. That'll be a good backdrop. You can kind of see here what this site looks like. If anything, I think I've showed you guys the inside of it. This is what it would look like if you just navigated to it. And this was, as you can see right here, one-to-one video console calls with YAA. This was what I decided I wanted to do. I purchased this the week prior. Cost me $200 for 1 hour, and they have, if you click on this, you can see right here, guys. You got a bunch of choices. You got a 60-minute, a 45, a 30, and a 15. So it's $200, $150, $150 for the 15 minutes. So those are the options, and this is just a super, super, super helpful feature. I can't stress enough how much I like that this is here, and I can come back to it whenever I want to check in and go over stuff with the guys at YAA. So, okay, glad that I remembered to bring this up for you guys. So let me go through the question list that I talked to Phil about. The main theme that I was approaching him about was this idea of buying cars for a rental fleet. I made sure to tell him that early in the conversation. In fact, I think I pre-emailed him before the conversation and said, "Hey, Phil, I'm not buying a car for myself. This isn't a retail purchase. I basically am, looking to buy cars for business purposes, and hopefully a lot of them." So that was something that he sort of knew going in, and then I had specific questions about when we spoke. So, I had written down here, what are your thoughts on rental fleet ownership? I didn't ask him that directly, but it came up along the way. I mean, there was discussion along the way of, doing a rental fleet and the ins and outs of what challenges that might bring up, or why it might be different from buying like a retail kind of vehicle for personal use. So I didn't ask this question directly, even though it was like at the top of my list, but it came out in the discussion. He never warned me against it. He never said it was a bad idea. He never said you shouldn't buy cars for rental fleet ownership. I think at one point he made a comment about how it's not often that the YA community sees somebody doing that most people come to YA to buy cars for retail purposes. But of course, it was Matty J who, in his car rental game course, pointed me to YA. So I'm sure some people have come through YA with that intention. So one of the questions that I asked him was about whether or not there were special considerations or tactics that I should use for buying a car for rental fleet use that would be different from how they talk about on YAA, how to buy a car for yourself. I was like, is there anything special? Is there anything I should mention? Is there something I shouldn't mention? That kind of thing. So he basically said, yes, you should mention it. You should tell the dealer that you are trying to build a fleet, that you're probably going to buy multiple cars from them. he flat out said it could help you get a discount. It could actually, like if a salesperson knows that you're, going to buy 3, 4, 5 cars that day, or you're going to come back and potentially buy from them in the future, if they have confidence in that fact, it can help you out. So he was like, definitely mention it. He's like, if you're really going big, if you're like in the 10 to 15 car range, some of the dealerships have what's called a fleet department. Had no idea what that was. I'd never heard of that before. He said, not all of them have one, but some of them have a section that you go straight to that. And now you're buying cars in bulk from them for fleet usage. So that was kind of an interesting little factoid. Does not apply to me yet, but definitely filed that away. Next question I had here, again, I'm just going in the order of my questions, however that turned out. YA offers email templates that you can literally, copy the email template and use it to email your dealer. And I basically said, hey, should I change those templates in some way, shape, or form for this exercise? And it also seen on the YA forum, a lot of people said the templates were kind of ineffective because dealers don't answer emails. They want to pull you into the dealership. They're not going to answer your email or give you anything to go off of. So the template effectiveness had already been questioned in the YA forum, but I asked about it. And he said, yeah, he's like, we are definitely revamping the templates. He's like, yes, your template would be different for buying cars for rental purposes. He's like, but don't use the ones we have there now. We're actually going to update them on 1 November. There's going to be a whole new set of them. Actually, let me walk that back. He said what he said about revamping the templates by 1 November, but he said for the rental fleet purpose, the better approach was to actually call first and try to make contact and build rapport with somebody by mentioning Turo, hire car, that my aim was to buy multiple cars, that I just want to see an out the door price, but to try to do that in a phone call first and then move the discussion over to email. So I thought that was really interesting that he said that. Let's see. Rental fleet angle is a negotiating tactic. Yep, we already talked about that. I asked him about getting cars inspected. Like if I was buying used cars, like how am I going to get it inspected and make sure I'm not buying a lemon and all that stuff. And so YA partners with Lemon Squad. Lemon Squad, let's just see if they come up here. Lemon Squad. Yeah, here we go. So these guys here. So basically, Phil was saying that Lemon Squad, which is nationwide, would come in after I'd gone to the dealer, negotiated the price, agreed on the numbers, and then created sort of a contingency clause. Like, hey, contingent on a Lemon Squad inspection, I can back out of the deal. And he said, because Lemon Squad is nationwide, usually you're going to get an appointment within a couple days. So you go to a dealer on a Monday, you can get Lemon Squad in there, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday kind of thing. So it's not a huge wait to get the car inspected. Okay, so that was, I'll just leave that up there for you guys. So that was his answer about getting the car inspected. Okay, then we talked about buying, with a business, using business credit instead of personal credit. And I have to say, like, I probably could have done the whole call on this one question because he answered the question. He answered it, I think, as well as he could have, but it opened up new questions. It was like a big rabbit hole that was forming when he asked when I answered the question. And so I didn't want to get bogged down in it. I wanted to ask all my other questions. So I kind of left the subject for a little while, but it really would have been a kind of an interesting thing to linger on. His whole point was the following. And at first he misunderstood me. At first he thought I was asking, how do I buy the car with like no personal involvement whatsoever? It's just like a business buying a car. And he was like, you need 5 years of existence. You need 5 years of P&Ls and cash flow, profit and loss, to show that the business is healthy and could take on, the debt burden and all that. So then I was like, well, wait a second. I'm like, what about if I bought it inside of a business, like inside of an LLC, and gave some sort of personal guarantee of it? And he said, oh, that's entirely different. He said, a personal guarantee plus an income like basically stating what my income was and a credit check would be doable, and it doesn't report to the credit agencies. So this sounded kind of interesting to me for a different reason, because number one, it sounded easy. Like, oh, I go in there with an LLC, but I say, hey, I'll personally guarantee it, and they run my credit, but it doesn't affect my credit report, so I'm good to go on the credit side, and I get the car in the LLC. kind of sounded easier than I thought. Kind of sounded too good to be true. And definitely something that I need to check on because I've seen in the car rental game forum that it's harder than it looks to buy cars without your personal credit. And that's very top level, rudimentary, kind of understanding of what's being discussed in the forum. But that's what I've taken from the car rental game forum so far. I need to dig into that, but it wasn't totally matched with what I was hearing from Phil. Okay, but Phil's answer in and of itself was a great answer, and I was super excited about that. Okay, we talked about like some of the saved searches that I did for Kias, where I'd looked up Kia Rios because that's the car that I'm targeting, and I said, hey, what do you think about it? What do you think about the fact that the Kias are about the same price as Carvana? I'm checking these Kias on Carvana. And he said, Carvana, is basically, going to change its price. It's going to offer on cars that it wants, maybe higher than normal, or could offer less than what you're supposed to get for it because they don't want the car. He said, you can't totally go by Carvana. But he said that the Carvana price is a decent data point, but I should get other ones like Vroom, CarMax, stuff like that. He mentioned that Kia was a challenged manufacturer, hence the pricing, that it is very possible to get some good deals on Kia. He didn't go into a lot of detail on what he meant by challenged. I didn't ask him. He said, but check the other sites. There might be cars that certain sites want and certain sites don't want. So he's like, you should kind of check them all to kind of get a bearing on that. Okay, yeah, we talked about Hyundai and Rio, Kia Rio Kia and Hyundai kind of being in the same boat. He talked about days on market. He said, look for cars over 60 days on market. Over 60 days, they start getting to the point where they're going to get the car ready to go to auction. Then they got to take it to auction. Then they got to, and then they got to do the auction costs that they have to bear and all that. So he's like, when you see it past 60 days, that dealer is very vulnerable, and that's where you should kind of start your search. We talked about the buying an SUV over 6,000 pounds, putting it on Turo. He'd heard of that. And we talked a little bit about it, but it wasn't a really substantive conversation. The prices on YAA that they show, like when they show you in your saved searches, there's like an advertised price and then an out the door price. He's like, the advertised price is what the dealer is advertising before they maybe try to pile on a bunch of fees and stuff. The out the door price is what YAA is saying on an estimated basis you should pay no more than. So he clarified those two prices that you would see when you look at saved searches in YAA. Let's see. Talked about the best time of year to buy, last week of the year, because they're trying to hit their goals. The spring is a very bad time because of tax refunds and everybody gets out in the warm weather. When we talked about the 6,000 pound SUV, he basically said like the luxury cars are struggling. So due to the interest rates and the high payments and stuff, he's like, if you were going to do the 6,000 pound SUV, this is probably the time to do it. Yeah, we talked about, Edmunds, Car Gurus, iccars.com, blackbook.com, checking these other sites, seeing what dealers are, up against pricing wise, that's out on the internet. He gave tips for cutting down time at the dealership, agree on the numbers ahead of time. There's no need to sit there. They should provide everything via email or text. He basically said there's no reason you should even have to go into the dealer. You should be able to do everything on email and then just go pick up the car. And then we just talked about, using YA to the maximum degree, community forum, premium chat, all the YA people who can review the deal and stuff like that. So it was a great call, guys. Went a little long here on the video, but that's just a total recap factually of what took place during the YA phone consult. And you can see how much ground we covered in 60 minutes. And in the future, I probably would pull on specific threads, maybe book like a 30-minute call and just focus entirely on buying with business, buying with personal guarantee or buying inside of an LLC or whatever, things like that. So hopefully you guys got some value out of this. Hopefully it gives you some clarity on this feature of YA. If you guys have any questions about it, drop me a comment down below. Of course, while you're down there, hit the subscribe button for the channel. But yeah, this is definitely worth it. I will be using these consult calls again in the future. And thanks for watching this, guys.